Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Addicts Anonymous. This is episode 16, and for this one I have a very special treat. We don't have a developer interview, we actually have an interview with one of the holder of the longest running Star Citizen podcast videocast. That's Luke from Star Citizen FM. Well, it's kind of an interview. I think it's kind of like dueling banjos kind of interviews. We interviewed each other for this one, and I'm going to air it on my show, and he's going to air it on his. It's a crossover. I enjoy doing it so well. So I'm looking back at the news, and when I first looked at the news and I looked at the website and there weren't a lot of updates, I said, you know what? News isn't going to be a big issue this week. I can get through it in just a few minutes, and I probably still will. And then I put it on paper, and I looked at it, and there's a lot here. But there's not a lot for me to go over. I leave that for Wes. He does an amazing job recapping each week, and I give my opinion and thoughts on what's going on in the universe. So Wes does the Romantics podcast, which is called The Whole Truth. And what I do is I pretty much break down the things and pull out the important things that made me, well, raise an eyebrow. I'm not going to talk about this morning's wing, sorry, we'll be quiet. We'll make believe this isn't shot on Wednesday, but it is. We're not going to talk about Wingman's Hangar. We're going to save that for the next episode because I'm going to try to get these on track to be released on Wednesday mornings again. So essentially, the first thing that we were met with was the press update because I already talked about the next Great Starship contest last week, and we're going to go over that in a few minutes. So we had a press update, and there were a lot of things to pull out of this one, and I think it's that the general public is starting to get Star Citizen. And I think Time Magazine has the best quote to actually show that. And it's just this. That's kind of insane. All the crowdfunding over $10 million in Pebble Watch Kickstarter. And then forget about it. Insert someone shaking their fist, chanting, "Game power here." Essentially, I probably botched that because I wrote it down from the website and didn't really translate very well. Essentially, what they're saying is like, when you look at it, the Pebble Watch has all this press about how successful a Kickstarter it was. But here we are in a week where Star Citizen just crossed the $39 million mark in crowdfunding. All right, for all you people that have pledged, for all you people that watch this show or many of the other shows, you're part of history here. This hasn't been done before. You're pioneers. We're giving money to a company to make a game that we want them to make. It's pretty cool. They also had articles there from GameSpot, Joystick, Game Politics, Digital Trends, and then 10 Ton Hammer, who has this quote: "I'm incredibly excited about the potential this represents, and I'm just as pleased at what it says about the team. CIG have demonstrated a very real way that the game is our fame. It belongs to the fans, and it's not something they just say." So what are they saying with that? It's exactly what I say here on the show, not show after show, but when things like this come up. There isn't a company out there that has been as transparent, as outgoing, and as community involved as CIG. Everything they do involves each and every one of us in this game. Our thoughts. Think about how David Haddock opened up the actual lore builder. Our video questions, the developer updates that they give us on a regular basis. It's starting to be copied by other people. Look at the way that EverQuest Landmark is coming out. Look at some other games that are being announced right now. People are trying to copy the model that CIG has pioneered. And I think these articles are starting to show that people get it. And I'm very impressed with that because, you know what, Chris, I've given you, well, I should say Chris and Sandy and Eric and Rob and Mark and Mike and Ian, and I could go on, Chelsea, and I could go on and on. I've given your company money that I really didn't have to give you because I believe in your ability to give me exactly what I've been looking for forever in a game. And I think that these people are starting to realize that as committed as we, the fans, are to you, you're committed to us. And that's unheard of in this industry. And I'm proud to be part of it, even though I'm on this side of it reporting about it instead of your side where I'd rather be building it. All right, so we're going to skip over the press because we could really get lost in there. We're going to go into a little bit more of the lore. And this one's a big one because, you know, I talk about Ruckus and his wife and how she's got the non-alcoholic liver disease and we're trying to raise money for her to have her operation. And then comes along little blips and blurbs about this fever that's running rampant inside of certain quadrants or sectors in the UEE space. And it's called Lynch fever. And there's no cure for it, and they have to find it. And this week you have a lore little excerpt called Kazan, I believe, in there. And essentially what they're telling you is a little bit more of an update on Lynch fever, how they're trying to stop the spread, how they found it was spreading. It was actually started by a couple of pirates that hijacked a vessel and had to dump food. I didn't write it all down for you because I believe when David and his crew put out lore and they put it on the website, it's part of the game and you really need to go out there and absorb it and you need to read it because this is the universe you're going to be in. So it tells you about this and about how Lynch fever is being, you know, passed from one person to the other and what quadrants and what planets are affected by it. And I believe this is going to be one of those lore serials that go on for a while, and it's actually going to be in-game when we start up quarantined areas where maybe we have to run missions of mercy or, you know, bring medical supplies to them to try to help out the people there. You never know. There's always something in the back end that CIG has that you've got to question, like, why are they telling me this? Is this going to be in the game? And I think this is one of those things that will be in the game. All right, so after that, we had the next Great Starship contest. And episode 1, I would say Sandy and the team did an amazing job. Why do I say Sandy? You had to watch Sandy rein them in every time they get off on tangents and keep them on, you know, on track. And Chris, amazing. And each and every one, well, Chris, Mark, you guys are all amazing. And I thought it was going to be a cheesy show, and it wasn't like network ready, but it was definitely much more entertaining and much more, I loved watching it. So this is how the show is going to go. There are 8 teams that compete on every episode, and then this is for the first 3 episodes, okay? So you're going to have 24 teams that go in over the first 3 episodes. Out of those 24 teams, you're going to have 15 chosen, but there are 16 that are going to compete. Where do you get that extra person from? Well, each show is going to see 3 teams disqualified, or not disqualified, but not voted to go on the next week. And at the end of those 3 episodes, you're going to have 9 teams that are all, you know, they weren't the winners. They were, I don't want to say losers because I didn't see losers. I just saw people that weren't as good as the winners, okay? We, the fans, are going to be able to vote one of those 9 teams in to be the wild card, to be the 16th team to compete against the rest. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to win because they didn't make it in, because the preliminary round was just being able to make a weapon. Now that they have more time and more feedback and more idea of what the developers are looking for, I'm sure the next presentations from these teams are going to be better. And I have to point, I don't want to point out any team that was better than the other. I really think that you need to watch this episode. It's 45 minutes of your day. That's it. And I think you could do it while you're working out, while you're getting up in the morning, whatever it is, you need to watch it because they put a lot of effort into it and they release it to us. But when I look at these, I mean, the teams were all pretty much phenomenal. The one that made me laugh the most was Raging Vertex. Guys, you're amazing. And the one that I like the most, I'm going to be quiet about until, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks later when you guys have all had a chance to watch it. So get out there and watch the next Great Starship contest. I think it will be definitely worth your time. If you're wondering what's happening with me, well, when I do interviews or other people's shows, I drink wine. I had wine when I was interviewed by and interviewed Dr. Hawk, so I'm a little bit, feeling good. All right, we're going to move on from here, and we're going to talk about the next thing that appeared in the actual comlink, and that was the Aegis company profile. This is another one of those lore tidbits that tells you a little bit about the company that makes some of the wonderful ships that we have. And I'm looking at my huge mouse pad over there, and there's the Idris, and there is the Retaliator, and there is the actual Avenger. 2 of the ships I own. 1, I don't have enough money to buy it, and I'm just going to crew Captain Glooms because I think I don't need an Idris. I just want to be on an Idris, and I think that's pretty cool. But this company profile goes into tell you a little bit about the company, about their history, about how they were a little bit replaced by the actual, companies like Anvil, but now are having a resurgence in the civilian market as military vessels are being allowed to be purchased by the civilians. One of the ships that was added to this one that wasn't in a jump point when they had this is the Surveyor. Now remember, the Aegis Surveyor is not the Explorer, that would be the Anvil Carrack. It is the salvage ship, which is going to be very important for any of you that are going to get into that salvage mechanic that was unlocked a few 10, 15, I can't remember. It was one of those stretch goals from sometime between October and now. So that is a really good read, and I hope that you all go out there and do that. All right, so after that, we had Dateline Sesson, another lore piece. And David told us last week when he said that Lore Builder is over for now, that we were going to have a lot of these lore pieces, very rich and engaging fiction that was going to be in the comlink. And this is one that's pretty much going into the privateer, and it's people on a television show talking about them. And again, this is one of those things that I think is best read. And if you're not going to read it yourself, maybe Trendane will turn it into an audiobook for us, right, Trendane? I hope so. I like listening to your galactic guides, and I think that these are definitely things I would love to hear you read. All right, after that, we had the letter from the chairman, and I'm going to switch over to the other page for this. And this is going to be the biggie because we have passed $39 million, and I'm sure every time we do this, I am sure that Chris looks up at the sky and says thank you to whoever he believes in. I think that this is one of those things that as we get closer to 40, 41, and then 42, which will definitely have some kind of meaning, right? Because 42 is Squadron 42, and it's a big number in this universe. I think as we get closer to that number, we're going to see some pretty wild stretch goals that are going to be unleashed upon us. In fact, this one talks about that just a tiny bit. If you remember back to the last stretch goal, there was a poll, just like there's a poll out there right now, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And in that poll, we were asked which star system we wanted to be unlocked next. This one was a tough one. And it was so close that Chris and his team didn't want to slight anybody. So instead of unlocking just one of the star systems, they unlocked 2 because it was neck and neck in voting. And they really wanted us, because we're pretty much sculpting where this game is going now. And we're the ones that are going to help guide it on its way in the future. So they've unlocked the Cabal system and Cabal, I guess. And if you think of Cabal, that's one of the planets that the Battlestar Galactica went to on its way back to Earth in the 2004 series, I think it was, that David Icke and Ronald D. Moore did. And I think this is pretty cool that they named one of those systems after that. I think. If I'm wrong, just tell me. I've been wrong about other things. Of course, I misspelled Sandy's name, and I'm sorry about that, and we'll talk about that in a second. But they have 2 systems that they've unlocked, and this will be the ones that will be, I guess, for the $41 million because we should be working on something else right now, right? So we're getting closer and closer and closer to a big unlock. We have all this money coming into Star Citizen. I know that recently I was able to get myself a couple of gift cards for use later on. I actually got an Aurora MR and a separate account that I could use to play as a pirate, since reading into between the lines, you can see that pirates definitely are going to have bad reputation with the UEE, and you don't want to use a main character for that. A lot going on here, right? So we've got these, all right, we've got these unlocks coming. We've got lots of money coming into the system. What's the state of the game right now? All right. So last week, and this is a cool little transition, they had a summit. And the summit was inside the Aurora office. They had all the teams from around the world come in. I think it was 40 people. And they actually set what their goals are, at least for the next quarter. I think they do 3 or 4 of these a year. So they got everything situated. They're not giving us a lot of information on exactly what they got going, you know, how they arrange things. But there are some things that if you watch that video closely, like in one, there's a board behind people and there's some post-its on the actual, to their right, to your left if you're watching it on the screen. It doesn't necessarily mean that the order of those post-its is what they're working on next, but the next thing in line was FPS, then Player Universe, then Squadron 42, and then something that was unintelligible, like illegible for me at the bottom. It doesn't mean that's what they're working on, but those are the things that we could see that are coming up next. I have 2 13-year-old sons that play the bejesus out of Call of Duty Ghost and Battlefield 4, and they are going to be my FPS people that sit in the back of my Connie or my Avenger or something else when I take out the engines of another ship and they rush in to take it out. So I can't wait for that first-person shooter aspect. But in the future, I know that we have, in the next month, I hope, please guys, work it out if you can. But I know that we have the actual dogfighting module coming. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of news going on. And I'm going to leave you with just this one last thing. Sandy put another poll out there. Last week was the poll about the joysticks. This week it's a poll about how many people are going to go to PAX East, which is in Boston in April. I know I can't. I don't have the money. I have the donate button on my website, but I don't have the money for Boston. And I don't think I need to go to that because I am, my job is going to have me into Huntington Beach in just about a month and a week. So from the 10th to the 13th, I'm going to be in Huntington Beach. I looked on a map and it's about an hour and a quarter from Santa Monica. And I am going to go and visit the corporate headquarters on the 14th of March. God willing, of course. I have asked Sandy and Ben and they've said I'm more than welcome to come. Until I realized it's going to cost me an extra $400 to stay in California for a day and a half, which is going to be tough, but I'm going to do it, and I'm going to go out there and hopefully get some FaceTime with a couple of people I haven't talked to. I can't wait. It sounds like a tangent now, right? I'm just trying to tell you about a little bit about what's going on. So that's going over there. So to recap the week, we had next Great Starship contest. We had a lot of lore released. We had and that encompasses Session, Kazan, and the Aegis company corporate profile. We had a poll released. We had the updates, the press updates. So we had a lot that was released. And then, of course, we had the $39 million. What else happened? All right, so I'm going to go into a very, very short little blurb. Wingman's Hangar got moved from Fridays to Wednesdays. The questions that they're asking us to ask are now very theme-based. This past week, I didn't get it, and I posted a video question. The one that you've probably all seen in my feed about energy management inside of dogfighting. And, of course, that would never be aired on this show because this show was about the summit. They wanted questions about the summit. So when you're posting questions for Wingman's Hangar in the future, we're not going to talk about what happened on Wingman's Hangar. we're going to talk about this particular thing. You want to make sure you read what they want the questions to be about. And that way you could have your question read on the actual show or viewed on the show. As far as the show that's going to air on Friday, I think Friday's show is going to be 10 for the Chairman, and then the next Great Starship at night. That ends a week of wonderful stuff that has gone on with Star Citizen. So get out there, look at the com link. I'm sure they're going to start putting up the videos about all the stuff that went on during the summit. Make sure you post your vote for if you go into PAX or not, so Sandy knows how many people to send and how big of a venue to make sure that she rents. And also, if you want to help me with any of these things, you can go out and click the donate button on the http://starcitizenaa.com. Okay, now we're moving into the next piece. The first bit of information I want to talk about is the contest. I read Captain Feddard's confession of a Star Citizen last week. He has entered into the contest. At the end of this show, I will read another one. We have the rest of February. The last episode of February, I'm going to ask you all to go out to the actual Star Citizen AA website and vote on who was the best. And they are going to get an Avenger package that was provided to me by Cloud Imperium Games, aka Sandy. So one of you is going to be a proud owner of a new Avenger ship package. Next month, I'll probably be buying the package on my own, unless CIG is equally as, unless they give another package away. And we'll decide what that is with, in the same price point. Here comes the next couple of pieces. I created another playlist on my channel, and it's called Game Community Interviews. I broke out the Ben Lesnick and the Sandy Gardiner interviews and reposted them in there. Not to make you watch them again, but because there's going to be a big reason for that particular playlist in the future. I contacted the people that are building Elite Dangerous. I got an email back from Allison, who is their PR director, and she has promised to give me FaceTime, or I should say voice time, with their community manager in this realm. It would be Ben Lesnick, and with their director, their creative director, I guess, which I think would be a number of different people at Cloud Imperium Games, like the Robs and the Erics and Chris himself, right? They're the creative people, directors there, and I hope I'm not slighting anyone by missing you. So they're going to give me some FaceTime, some voice time with them. I'm going to post some interviews. I also just did an interview with Dr. Hawk, and it seems like the interview piece of this show is starting to take off into not just Star Citizen, but other games. I've also started another playlist for War Thunder. It doesn't mean that I'm moving myself away from Star Citizen. It means I'm starting to diversify myself into other games. I've been doing, the old retro Chris Roberts games I've done on this feed so far. I've had Wing Commander, I've had Strike Commander, I've had Privateer and Star Lancer already in this feed. And Kerbal Space Program. So I've expanded what I'm doing. And I think that that is a wonderful thing to do because I am kind of ADD when it comes to games, and I like so many of them. I can tell you this, though. I have a squadron in War Thunder called the Enablers, just like the organization I have here called the Enablers. If you're somebody that wants to go in and play War Thunder for just a little bit until the dogfighting module comes out, come on and join me. Join the guys that are, and girls that are there from the Enablers that are our organization here in Star Citizen, which you can get to by going there. Like how I incorporated that in there? Great. All right, so I'm going to end this right now so you can watch the never-ending interview I did with Dr. Hawk, which will not be in this show, but we'll have a link there so you can click on and go see it in the other feed. Thank you all for watching. And before I go, there's nothing else to say. Yeah, maybe. All right, I've scheduled time with David Haddock finally. And David and I are going to sit down either Friday this week or Monday and Tuesday next week. The next show is going to have an interview with the lead writer, lead lore creator at Cloud Imperium Games, David Haddock. I hope you're as excited as I am for that interview because, you know, every bit of text that you read in that game, every bit of lore that goes into the game is somewhat coming across his desk, and I think that's wonderful. So we got somebody that we could actually hold accountable for, you know, missteps as, you know, what George Lucas did with midichlorians. But we could hold him accountable, right? No, I can't wait to hear what he has to say. So that's all I got, and with that, I'll say goodbye, have a great week, and I'll see you in the verse like the wingman does. I gotta come up with my own phrase. Maybe that's the next contest. Help me come up with my closing phrase. See y'all later. Bye.
Hello, my fellow pilots, and welcome again to another episode of Star Citizen FM. This is a special episode of Star Citizen FM, as I have our very own community member, Nikki, here with Star Citizen AA. She is here for an interview today, and Nikki, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Doc, and I guess I'm going to have you on my show, too, because I'm here with Star Citizen Addicts Anonymous to interview you. I guess we got some things crossed. So who goes first?
Why don't we deal this the old Russian, way and just load up a 6-chamber and see who wins?
No, I've watched too many of those Deer Hunter movies.
Yeah, it's actually what went through my head that specific moment.
One shot!
That was an actually very crazy scene. Props to that director for doing that. Regardless, yeah, very nice to finally have you on the show. I've been wanting to talk to you for a bit because you kind of sprang out of nowhere to me. And in all honesty, you are almost parallel to what Star Citizen FM is, except for you are more good looking than I am.
Oh, thank you. I don't know about that. I've only seen you once in a very fuzzy movie.
Oh, well, there's that. And then I think I also on the live stream where they decided to make me drink moonshine, and that ended well.
That's right, I didn't see that.
And then there's Legante versus King Shadow. I've done it. I've shown my face a few times, but generally try to hide it. So let us start off here. Like, what got you into doing the broadcasting? Because, you, like I said, you kind of just pop. Here's Nikki, and took me by surprise. And it's nice to always see more, community members doing podcasts and etc. But you've seemed pretty adamant on it right now, and what made you start?
Well, I've been toying with podcasts and videos for years and years, and I've owned a domain called The Addicted Gamer since probably about 8 years ago. And there was a podcast, which nobody will find, called The Addicted Gamer. I did about 20 episodes, and I used a format similar to my last 2 interviews with Ben and Sandy. In fact, I think it was almost exactly the same. And what actually happened was my boys have been playing Battlefield and Call of Duty Ghosts, going crazy with it. And they wanted to start streaming. So I said, I'll figure it out. And in the process of me figuring it out, I found a game called Kerbal Space Program, and Scott.
Oh my God!
And Scott Manley, who I absolutely adore, Scott Manley's, his videos. I love his videos.
My interview with him.
Yeah, and he won't answer my call, so you're going to help me get him on my show.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and Scott did a video which I copied, and I begged his permission, and he never answered me, and then I begged forgiveness afterwards, which was before Star Citizen, there was Wing Commander, and I copied that video, and I talked about my experiences with Wing Commander. And the first time I saw that video, I was like, before there was, from Wing Commander to Star Citizen or something like that, and I was like, is Chris Roberts getting into the Richard Branson gig where he's going to start trying to create like Spaceship One and stuff? So I just let it go from one end to the other, and then I saw his video again, and I watched it, and I was like, oh, that's a good game. And then on August 26th, the game sucked me in, and I haven't looked back since. And, I just had to talk, and I started doing the Admirals Club, which turned into Addicts Anonymous. I started the thread in the subscribers den called I'm Beginning to Get Addicted, and that was the end of it. So as soon as that happened and people jumped on, I kept doing videos and people kept on egging me on and saying, they're wonderful, keep doing them, keep doing them. And then people started liking my throwbacks to Wing Commander, Freelancer, Strike Commander, Starlancer. So I do it really for me, and now I'm doing it for the community. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, and honestly, that's one of the best ways to view it, so
all right.
pat on the back for yourself.
Thank you. Now you owe me a question.
No!
Yes.
All right.
Your question is the question I ask everybody that's on my show. What was the first computer that you owned that you gamed on?
The first computer that I owned, and I'm saying this in quotations because it was my parents', my father specifically, was one of the original Apple MacBooks, the black clunker, and that was the first time I played Pathways into Darkness, which then led me into Marathon, which has shaped me into the Halo addict that I am today.
Bungie, Microsoft, bad, evil people that stole Bungie away from Apple.
Oh, I still love Bungie, and people can say what they want about Halo, but just
I think it's
those guys. So that is what the first device I ever played on. And then after that, it was on more Mac computers. I was actually raised in a very Mac Pro environment, yet for some reason I'm the only PC guy in the house and family in general. So that kind of goes over odd when we all get together.
Well, we'll get you back because I work for Apple, and we'll figure out a way to, reprogram you again.
Can I put a Titan in a Mac yet?
No, but you don't want a Titan anymore. Come on, Star Citizen supports Mantle.
But I have a Titan.
Hey, that's good. You can have whatever you want. I have to build a computer for Star Citizen.
I'll build two. So in my return, that's actually a good follow-up question. You plan to game, obviously, and have family members. Have they pledged for Star Citizen? Have you dragged the kids into it, or have they still glued to Battlefield?
They're 13, and they'll go where I lead them, not where I push them. Currently, they're very, 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 very tied to. They're twins, so one is on Call of Duty Ghosts, and the other one's on Battlefield 4, and they fight about which one's better all the time.
Well, I support the one that plays Battlefield, so.
Yeah, I think it's a better game, but will they come in? My thinking now. Here's my thinking about it. They're both playing FPS games, so I've got one other account, and my idea is that I'll be playing on my PC, and then I'll have my Mac over here, and whichever one isn't on the Xbox at the time is going to be in the back of whatever ship I have, ready to attack any borders or invade any ships I happen to disable. That a good plan?
It's a smart idea. Just hopefully they belt themselves down. Also, you want his child bouncing around in the constantly. Oops, sorry about that.
We'll have to pad the inside of my Aurora, or maybe my Avenger.
Pad it like one of those psychiatric ward rooms. All the mattresses. There you go. Welcome to Nikki's Constellation. You can bounce on it. Boing, boing, boing.
Nikki's Constellation, Nikki's Retaliator, Nikki's Gladiator. I think I went over the hog wild.
Yeah, I don't have that much money.
All right, so your turn. What was the first game that had you addicted?
The first game that had me addicted would probably have to be Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider and Tomb Raider 2 tied with MechWarrior. And I say tied because one of them I could play on the PC, the other I could play on the Mac. So when I was at my father's, it was Tomb Raider, and when I was at my mother's, it was MechWarrior. And MechWarrior has...
Are you talking about the original MechWarrior from Sierra?
The original MechWarrior. I pretty much have played every single one, including, Mech Commander, which, no, we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, we don't talk about
We don't talk about Mech Commander or MechWarrior Online anymore. But yeah, so MechWarrior shaped my simulator craving. Tomb Raider, sort of the opening. Then that followed into Doom and Quake. Quake being something I got really into. So pretty much anything I find interesting, I kind of, if you're familiar with the term content locust, I just burn through it as hard as I can.
Yeah, Do you find that fun?
Yes, I do actually,
Okay.
because depending on the game, I see completing a game as just a challenge like any other puzzle. Like, I see a jigsaw puzzle on the table here, sure, try to complete it. There is one game only to this date that has not let me complete it, quote unquote, and that is Dark Souls, and that is why I'm a Dark Souls fan to this date, and will probably disappear for a few months after Dark Souls 2 comes out, mostly because it just resets every time you beat it, and expects you to keep going, so fine by me.
Alright.
So, actually, that's a fair question to retort. What was your first game that you got addicted to?
Tell me. This is Nikki Batgirl D'Angelo, and before I read this next story by Ryder, who dropped it off into the Confession of a Star Citizen Addict thread in the Star Citizen AA website, I want to make sure that everyone knows that I do not think that this game is going to be addicting like this, and although I call the show Star Citizens AA, it's only a pun on words. I know that we love the game and that any one of us could walk away from it at any point, but we don't want to because it's something that Chris Roberts is giving us that we've all wanted all of our lives. So when I read this story, I want you to remember that I don't believe a lot of it. I just like the way that this story is written, and that's my disclaimer. It's been 3 years since it first came out. 3 years since things started to go to shit. 3 years since Chris Roberts was standing in court like a schmuck denying everything. A crippling blow to humanity. I remember the first deaths. A few months after the game's release, saw the first death. Some Korean kid who decided that sitting in front of a computer for 94 hours without eating or sleeping was wise. I remember smirking when I heard, God, I'm such a terrible person. Then the second death. Russia, some kid was playing and hadn't noticed the heating was off and the temperatures dropped. His mom found him frozen to death in front of his computer. Then the third and fourth. At first, everyone thought it was bad luck, some sort of strange turn of events. We handled it the same way we handle any other kind of death. We repressed it. It turned into a joke, really. A game so good it was addicting, and of course, that only brought more people into the game. Heck, that's how I decided I'm getting into it. A few months later, we found out the truth. By then, though, it was too late for most of us. You know, I still remember my first Avenger. God, I sat for hours, literally hours, in front of that stat chart, listing every ship available for purchase, with its pros and cons and every flaw or advantage that I could have. I should have known right there and then that the path this game would take me on. Look at the chart. It was like looking into the future. I could see myself doing so many things with each and every one of those ships, so many Avengers of different kinds. It was glorious. But I fell in love with the Avenger. I fell in love with it, but I digress. What was I talking about? Oh, yes. So about 9 months after the game's release, someone managed to connect the dots. I mean, yes, games were always kind of addicted, but not like this. People died. People lost their jobs, dropped out of school. It became infamous for how life-consuming it is, which, once again, brought even more people into the game. And then, someone figured it out. A scientist or something from Sweden, I think. Anyway, who cares? He figured out that the game wasn't just so fun, it was almost addictive. It was addictive. Like, something about the realism and the open world and the choose-your-own-adventure type thing. Something about the game just pushes all of our buttons. It's irresistible to most people. Apparently, destructive to some. And that was that. Apparently a video game can affect your brain the same way nicotine does. Who knew? And now, we're all deep in that muck. Nothing you can really do about it. You can't take a game off the shelves just for being fun. Can you? So yeah, Chris Roberts got sued by about 1 million people, but none of it stuck. Now he's underground, not doing interviews, not talking to anyone, nothing. Some people say he's working on another game. Some people say that's crazy talk. Anyway, the video game lobby has become so big, there's really nothing we can do about it. Can't ban it, can't change it, can't stop playing it, can't beat it. Me? I still remember my first Avenger. Man, it was a thing to behold. You know, I wasn't into all that futuristic crap before all that, but The Avenger turned me around. First Flight was amazing. I remember getting into it for the first time. Those awesome animations. My God, I felt like I was in it. A few months later, I got a pair of Oculus Rifts. Cost me a fortune, but I had to have it. I was unbeatable, living the dream. I was a badass bounty hunter, wrote myself a backstory and everything. Soon, enough people started recognizing me. Can you believe that? Actual people. So you know, I had to go deeper. Started my own org, bought a few ships, started playing with other players, got myself a decent joystick setup. Man, I was so happy back then. I was on top of the world. What? Oh yeah. Yeah, there's more. It all went to shit right from about that point. I wasn't doing so well at work. Boss said my head wasn't in the game. If only he knew. I fragged his ass in game 2 days later, by the way. He had no idea who I was. Then came the first loan, then my wife. Finally I lost my job, got into debt, I had to stop. I found this group. They're really good to me, you know. I haven't touched a video game in 5 months. I meet up with my wife, well, ex-wife, once a week now. We're trying to work things out. Getting started with a new job. Things are better for me. It's good. It's a good thing, really. I'll never forget it, you know. I'll always remember my first Avenger. I just wanted to say it's creepy how plausible the story is in regards to how I might get addicted. I should note that I chose to name it after the contest because I felt it was incredibly appropriate, given the style of the story. Thanks for reading, Writer. Well, Writer, I think this is a very good submission. I fear that some people are going to take it to the extreme. I did read it because it was very well written. I do want to say that I do not believe games are addicting. I believe that people have addicted personalities, and I think that everything has to be done with restraint, which is why I don't sit here all day long in front of a computer playing games. Instead, I shoot videos and edit them all day. That's my addiction. Alright, tune in next week for another confession of a Star Citizen addict.